You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is January 17th, 2024, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. Today, we're going to just go over a couple of news topics. Essentially, we're going to focus on DEI for most of the show, and we might also talk a little bit about some California not seeming to be able to follow the Supreme Court's instructions on gun laws. And finally, we're going to get to a Knucklehead Noise Patrol, where we talk a little bit about some of what's going on in Georgia with the elections and some of these cases against Trump. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to our panel. In our lower left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our lower right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California.
I'm not screaming, I'm eating.
Okay, our eating eagle of freedom. Okay. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So again, we've started off with these quotes at the beginning of the show, and I think this Liberty quote is particularly relevant since we're going to be talking about DEI. So, James, our invisible hand, can you bring up the visual today? So our quote comes directly from Martin Luther King Jr., and he had a dream, and we're going to talk about a line from that because it's particularly relevant to DEI. And so what he said during that dream speech, he said, "I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." And that does not sound like DEI. But do you guys have any thoughts on King and his dream before we jump into the DEI stories?
I love that.
Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
I just love that quote. Go ahead, Leon.
You know, I believe Martin Luther King is turning over in his grave when he see some of the people who are claiming him as their hero and their idol, and as an icon after his work on the civil rights in the civil rights movement. He led the entire civil rights movement. He liberated, I think, Black Americans and white Americans to have a new vision of what this country was founded on and what it was made of, the whole spirit of liberty and all that. And some of these people still claim this man, and they are now promoting things in his name that have absolutely nothing to do with the vision of this man. Just even look at that very quote, where he wanted his 4 little children to be judged, not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And all these people these days who running around claiming this man as their hero, they are doing exactly the thing this man spoke against, which is judging by the color of the skin. God help us.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most beautiful lines and one of the most iconic speeches in American history, and certainly all about liberty. This is the civil rights part of liberty, that government should have nothing to do with restricting you based upon your skin color or other superficial things. So that's other superficial identity characteristics. So it's just absolutely horrible what he was against, what he was fighting against. But today, those same people who seem to have come from that vein, I guess, the people who were really at a lot of them at the forefront of the civil rights movement seem to have taken it to another dimension, where now it's sort of like they want to judge by the color of your skin and not by the content of your character. And it's called DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. Boy, I tell you, it seems to be wreaking havoc all over. And so we're going to talk about a few different areas. One of them was a story that sort of Leon sent for us to look at. And I think it's like diagnosis DEI at the John Hopkins University. And so let's see, I'll pull up the story on that. So apparently they have John Hopkins has a diversity chief. Now, all these companies and everybody now has a diversity chief, which is like, I mean, that's literally a thing where they pay somebody maybe six figures to sit there and try and measure everybody's melanin in the place. I'm not really too sure what they do other than to try and divide everybody up. But that seems to be the thing. And so she sent out an email, I guess, to the entire organization. And she said the diversity of the word of the month is privilege. And she said privilege is a set of unearned benefits given to people who are in a specific social group. Privilege operates on personal, interpersonal, cultural, and institutional levels, and it provides advantages and favors to members of dominant groups at the expense of members of other groups. In the United States, privilege is granted to people who have membership in one or more of these social identity groups. So now they're going to tell you who it is that has privilege just because of their skin color. They don't know any of these people. They just saw what your melanin level is, and they're going to tell you. So they said white people, able-bodied people, whatever that means, because I think we all are on a spectrum there. Heterosexuals. So I guess if you're a woman who likes men or a man who likes women, now suddenly you're privileged.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Cisgender people. I thought that isn't that kind of heterosexual? Isn't that the same thing? I don't know, but I guess they just needed to add some more things to
No, I think they they have a more specific definition for that nonsense. I think a cisgender person is somebody who identify, according to them, identify as their birth, as how they were born, the sex by which they were born. So if somebody was born, regardless of how they identified it, if somebody was born male, born with a penis, and they identify as a male, as an adult, that would be a cisgender man.
Okay, you're right. This whole new dialectic Olympics that we have to go through.
I only know all that crap because of this show, Jason. When I see things, I have to go check it. So
because of the show, I know. The only reason I know of any of this stuff is because we're getting hit with it out in society every other. Especially if you're a John Hopkins, apparently you're getting hit with this on a regular basis. But James, can you bring back up the visual, because there's just a couple more here. There's apparently, if you are male, that is one of the items too. So in fact, I'm gonna zoom in on this a little bit to help everybody see this list. So if you are a male, you are also apparently privileged. So now we're talking way over half of the country is privileged. So you got males, that's 50% of people. You got white people, that's another roughly 45% or so. And then you overlap those. So now there's suddenly only like 25% that aren't privileged. Heterosexuals, well, that's like 90-something%.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, we're getting down to the point. Well, anyways, it's hard to figure out who isn't privileged, I guess, at this point. But then Christians. So if you're Christians, that seems to be the dominant religion, at least in this country. Middle or owning class people. So apparently, if you own stuff, you're privileged.
What they're doing there is really telling we should be a Marxist nation. That is what, nobody should have private property. There should be no private property ownership. That is what she's telling us there.
Yeah, I think so. And then you're middle-aged. So now if you're middle-aged, you're privileged. Man, I tell you, I would love to have the stamina and body of a 25-year-old. I don't know about you. I mean,
I'd like to have the pain-free status of a 25-year-old.
Me too.
Yes, exactly. But according to her, that's not part of the definition. So you're not supposed to question this stuff, right? Or it's misinformation. I guess we won't call this misinformation. It's just if you question it, I guess. And then English-speaking people. So now, if we spoke English, we're privileged. Would I be privileged if I went to China? It's just
if you went to Quebec, you might have a problem, because most of Quebec, Quebec speaks French, so you might have a problem, So I don't know.
Well, a diversity chief, I'm assuming they make at least six figures. And so this woman is getting paid, six figures to tell everybody at Johns Hopkins that they're all probably privileged. And for what purpose, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, do you guys want to jump in on this? I thought this was supposed to be about medicine and science. I don't know.
If I could just talk about the able-bodied people. So I can see. I'm not blind, therefore I can be a pilot. I cannot think of a single pilot, professional pilot that's blind that is a professional pilot. So I think that I do have a special privilege for that kind of opportunity, and probably other opportunities, because I am sighted. So I'm not sure what their end result is, what they're trying to say. Are they, so this is for discussion. Are they saying that all blind people should have the same privileges that sighted people have? So in other words, if a blind person wants to fly planes, then are they saying that they want someone to accompany them in the plane and tell them, okay, you're approaching rotation speed. Oh, left rudder, you're off to the right. Whoa, not that much. Whoa, a little bit more. Is that what okay, pitch up. So, okay, there you go. Hold that right there. What are they trying to say here? I'm not understanding that. I mean, yes, I have a privilege. I'm thankful. I certainly don't want to lose my vision. Thank you very much. And I don't think anybody else does. And so, some of this stuff, it is a privilege. It's probably a privilege in some ways, in many ways, to be a male in the United States, because we're a patriarchal society, or any other patriarchal society. It's probably a privilege. You probably, have easier times with doing something or owning something or achieving things or whatever. Okay, what are you supposed to do about that, though? I mean, is this a whole level the playing field in some, by government, of course, by people in government? Is that the end result here? Are we going to try to have, now the FAA is going to have people that have severe mental deficiency. If a severely mentally deficient person is going to be making decisions about whether or not I can legally fly a plane in the United States, is that something coming down the pike that I'm going to be, or people like me, or many other pilots in the future are going to have decisions made about their health and whatever it might be by people who are mentally deficient? Is that where we're going with this? I don't get it.
Here's the issue, though. It's not so much an issue if you're part of a private club and you want to have whatever crazy rules you want to have. No big deal. The problem is when government gets involved, and almost all this stuff is coming through government, places being afraid they're going to get sued or other things, because the government has all these different offices that essentially people can use to chase down your business. If they think you're somehow discriminating in a way that they don't like, which that's a whole another ball of wax, I guess, talking about discrimination, because is it irrational bias or not, right? We all discriminate every day, whether you choose McDonald's over Taco Bell, that's discrimination, right? So
it is.
Yeah. But Tim, you did say something about it being a patriarchal society, and to me, I think the issue whether or not it's a patriarchal society really only comes down to whether or not the rules tend to support a patriarchal society. And at one point, I would definitely agree with you, where men had superior rights to women in society, but I don't think that's true anymore. I think it's almost like the rules are set up to disadvantage men in a lot of ways nowadays. So I'm not totally sure I'd agree that it's a patriarchal society anymore, but
I think the separation, though, and where there's this big confusion, is that men tend to go into certain professions women tend to go into certain professions. And there's, as a result, if you look at a female-dominated profession, you'll see a great disparity between the men and the women. If you look at a male-dominated profession, you'll see the same thing. The problem is that these people with their intellectual deficiencies think that every profession across the board should have the exact percentages of men or exact percentage of women or the exact percentage of blacks or the exact percentage of Hispanics. They think those exact percentages should be reflected in every profession. And this is the nonsense that these people are pushing. And the problem is, look at the nice words they try to use to push their garbage. Oh, diversity. Now, who could be against that? Or equity. Well, who could be against that? Inclusion. Who could be against that? But when you dig under the covers of those words, you'll find out the rot which these people are trying to ram down our throats. Well, because diversity, equity, and inclusion have nothing to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Absolutely nothing. It have everything to do with a Marxist agenda that will divide us and then conquer us, put us at each other's throat. You know, you guys are both white, and I ain't supposed to be friends with you guys because you guys are the oppressor, and poor Leon is the victim. Poor guy. This is the nonsense that's going on. They are trying to make us into a society that is made up of the oppressor class and the victimized class. And poor people like me, you know, oh God, we are being victimized every day by you guys. This is the sickness that has been running through our society these days. It's like a disease worse than COVID. And if we don't do something to stop this madness, if we don't, these divisions that they are purposely bringing about in society, if we don't, this will destroy this great land of ours. America has many flaws, but one of them is not racism. Okay? At one time, I would say yes, but not today. And these people want us to live in the past constantly. And they're trying to have people get new privileges just because of their skin color.
The black man with the halo over his head has spoken.
Oh yes, let me be Jesus Christ for a minute, yeah.
You know, I can't help but think, you know, in all this too, you know, if we go back to that quote of Martin Luther King, that what he was trying to do was unite us all, to get us to not see the differences so that we could all get along. And, you know, what this DEI thing is literally trying to get us to see all the differences and then, you know, and then sort of disaggregate ourselves, just all put ourselves in separate bins and treat each other differently because of that. It's just absolutely insane. But speaking,
I don't understand.
But no, before you go on, go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
I just don't. It's the same question again. So I just don't understand what the end result. What's the goal? What is the goal of all this?
To bring also divide and conquer. That's the goal. Divide and conquer is some Marxist agenda. Yeah, you know, if you look at that quote, let's go back to that quote you talk about, Jason, the one by Martin Luther King.
James, can you pull that up again real quick? So
yes, please, yes.
Yeah,
Martin Luther King was trying to describe for us what a colorblind society should look like. That is what he was trying to describe. Do you know today there are people like Ibram X. Kendi, that grifter, that crook, who up to now he haven't accounted for all the money that was in his anti-racist center on Boston University. Today, he and others, Robin DiAngelo is another one who wrote the White Fragility. They're saying that if you claim to be colorblind, if you somewhere and you testified in front of Congress, or if you are talking with your friends and you say, no, I don't see skin color, I don't see race, I am colorblind. You know what they claim? That is racist. That is racist. because you're not seeing your own privilege. That's why. That's racist. This is a madness. And this is what I'm telling you. Martin Luther King's dream have now become Martin Luther King's nightmare, because I'm sure he's turning in his grave right now.
Well, I think one of the things that that we're seeing too is that this DEI appears to be used to grant privilege in other areas. I guess it's almost like it's trying to grant privilege in the reverse direction. So if we pull up this visual now for this other story, what's going on at Harvard seems to be granting privilege. DEI seems to be what it's used to be granting privilege. I guess, in the opposite direction, because what we're seeing with somebody like Claudine Gay. Now, this was a woman who was promoted to be the president of the college, and they have standards there, academic standards for the students and for professors.
Yes.
That you're not supposed to copy other people's work without, acknowledging their ideas. And, so Claudine Gay, whether you think it's fair or not how it came up, but recently it all came to a head after she was essentially going in front of Congress along with a couple of other university presidents and saying that essentially they wouldn't stop anti-Semitic speech on their campus, essentially, because it was an issue of free speech, and as long as it wasn't something that was directly calling to violence against individuals, it was kind of squishy the way they worded it, but it was put to them in front of Congress, and they all wouldn't really answer the question. It was sort of like they all sort of stumbled around, and whether or not that's sort of a separate topic than what we're getting into, but that sort of brought a highlight to it. And so the other two women who were white women, they were forced to resign after that from their university presidencies. But Claudine Gay survived that because, you got to figure, well, does it have anything to do with skin color? I don't know. But it seemed to be that she seemed to be specially blessed in not suffering the same fate as those other women. But then it came out that she had plagiarized. She had committed plagiarism. Apparently,
she's a serial plagiarist.
Yeah, kind of like Joe Biden. but she had gone through this whole process where I guess this had come up before, and they investigated it for her, and they said, "Oh, it's nothing. It's not a big deal," is what they said. And so they gave her a pass on it, and so this really, I guess got blown up in the news because the people who, didn't like what she did in front of Congress really made a big deal about this and really, lit it up. And I mean, it turned out that she had Harvard had given her a pass on things like plagiarizing her acknowledgement sections. I mean, where she literally just went into other people's things where they thanked people for the contributions they made to their work and their scholarship. And she literally copied things like that from other people. So it was just outrageous levels of plagiarism. And she got a pass on that from Harvard, where, if you're a student, you could be kicked out of school for getting caught for plagiarism and the academic standards there. So, I don't know, what do you guys think? Is this a case of sort of DEI granting privileges?
Well, I guess she's checked off two of the correct marginalized sections, being a woman and being Black. So I guess another question is the thing that they're trying to do with DEI, is that to grant privilege, give jobs. Okay, let's call that the privilege. The privilege is a job and a high salary. She's making a high salary. And should those jobs with high salaries be granted to people that have broken the rules and that don't have a very high skill set, or should they be given to someone that might be a white male, but way better, way more skilled, that actually did not plagiarize and came up with their own ideas and so on and so forth, and has a good track record and so on?
And let me jump on real quick, Tim, something, because I just want to give an actual example of what you're talking about. Larry Summers used to be I believe the president of Harvard.
He was the president of Harvard. Yes,
exactly. Yes. And he was bounced out on that because not because of scholarship, but simply because he challenged the issue of why women weren't more represented in the STEM fields. And he suggested, well, maybe it's because, I can't remember the exact reasons he gave, all of them, but he suggested maybe they just aren't, maybe as excited about science, I think, as some of these, as their male counterparts and stuff. And I mean, he really got raked over the coals for that, and he got bounced out of it, whereas, but he wasn't plagiarizing. He wasn't doing things. He literally just had an intellectual disagreement with people about an issue that, hey, we're seeing that there's a lot more men than women in the sciences. Why is that? And so he was trying to give an honest observation, and he got bounced for that. But here's somebody dishonestly copying other people's work. And at least initially, she didn't get bounced for it. In the end, she did, because the political pressure just became too high and donors started pulling their money. And in the end, money talked and Claudine walked. So.
Okay, so if is it a stretch then if I say that, the reason why there's not very many blind people in the occupation of aircraft pilot is because maybe because they can't see in order to fly the plane safely? Would that observation be considered horrible? I mean, oh my God, I can't believe you said that.
In some places, Tim, in some places, yes, it might be considered horrible, yes.
Wow.
Because if we go back for 1 second to Jason's example of Larry Summers. Now, I don't remember exactly his quote, okay? But what the man said had more to do with, these are the random choices of people, okay, kind of stuff. And men were choosing the STEM fields far more than women, and that is a known fact for the last how many years, okay? It is true there was some time when women probably were forcibly denied entry into certain fields. I would agree to that, but that is not the case anymore. Okay.
Well, hold on, hold your thought, Leon. I'm going to have to exercise the privilege as a host to say that we're out of time for our
racist.
Yes. The oppressor class is now exercising.
Silencing a black man in mid-sentence. Oh my God. Sorry, Leon. But if you want to hear Leon get his voice back, come check us out online and you can hear the rest of his thoughts, because we're out of time here on public access. But go to Spotify, Rumble, YouTube, or Facebook, and you can find the rest of this conversation along with many others we've had. So go check that out. Okay, back to the show. Leon, you're on.
So Larry Summers, it was, like you said, an intellectual thought about random choices of human beings. And in this case, the disparity came up between men and women, and all of a sudden, that was some big horror show. He had to be kicked out of Harvard for it. But this get back to this whole idea of Martin Luther King's dream, though. This woman in particular, this Claudine Gay, if you know I'm disgusted with that woman, you would not believe, okay? The reason why her testimony in front of Congress became problematic, and I want to be very clear about this, Jason, people on her campus were calling for genocide against the Jewish people. And Elise Stefanik, who is a congresswoman from New York, asked her if calling for genocide by anyone is a violation of Harvard's rules and regulations. And Claudine Gay answered, it depends on the context. Okay? Now, I cannot think about what context could justify the genocide of anyone, any other human being. Okay? So this is why she got into trouble. Now, you could argue about a free speech issue if you wish, and I will entertain that discussion.
Well, Leon, I will say, though, depending upon the context, the two other women who said the same thing that Claudine said, the context for them is they were white and they lost their jobs immediately.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump.
No, it's okay. It's okay, because the other two women on the panel said similar things. right? They dance around the issue. I don't know if they use the exact words that Claudine used, but they dance around the issue, and stuff like that, and never directly answer the question, and they end up in trouble on their campuses. But Claudine survived. And this is where this DEI comes in. And Tim, you're right. She checked 2 good boxes. Good in terms of the DEI virus that is running through society. She's Black. She's a woman. So you can't attack that, you know. You cannot attack these people. These people are above reproach. They are Jesus Christ. They are sinless. You know, nowadays, if you attack that piece of crap in the vice president office of the United States, well, she's a person of color. You're not supposed to attack her. It's racism and sexism to attack her. Don't you know that? This is what DEI does for us. We take people who are less qualified than other people, put them into positions of power, give them fat salary. In case of Claudine Gay, she makes almost $1 million a year. And she's going to go back she have lost the job of the presidency of Harvard. She's going to go back into the faculty to teach, but she's still going to keep her salary, you know. So she really didn't lose anything. She might have lost the prestigious title as president of Harvard, but in terms of her finances, no, she's just as good. She didn't really lose anything because there's always that DEI to protect you, the DEI God to protect you, to keep you up, to make sure that nobody does any harm to you. But if you're a white male and you do exactly what she did, well, crapo smoke your pipe, as we say in Trinidad, okay? And your pipe will really be smoked.
Well, you know, it's funny, DEI flows in other ways than just race. And actually, when you brought up Kamala Harris, that's a great segue into the next one, because we're talking about in this story, maybe James, you could bring up the quote, the FAA is, I guess, has a diversity push to hire people with severe intellectual disabilities. And since you brought up Kamala Harris, I can't think of
not just intellectual, but psychiatric disabilities.
Yeah, exactly.
Kamala may be a case of a serious intellectual challenges.
I think everybody in that White House sort of floating around that. But, you know, we may have gotten the wrong signal from Joe Biden when he was electing.
well, let's not forget, okay? Kamala went on Shamale, the God show. I don't know if you know that show. It's a morning show out of Chicago. She went on that show. I'm not making this up, okay? It may sound hilarious, but I'm not making this up. She said when she was a student at Howard University, she used to smoke weed and listen to Tupac music, which was about 6 or 7 years before Tupac made any kind of music. That weed was really strong, boy. It really was. Okay, go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, maybe we can get our invisible hand real quick. And then Tim's going to love this story because it's all focused on the FAA, which has to do with airplanes. This is
they are not our friends, let me tell you.
Well, the skies, they may be friendlier with these new rules, but they're going to be a little more chaotic and crazy, possibly. I don't know. But the FAA is apparently pushing this new sort of DEI push to hire people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. And here is the FAA's page. And right down here, they talk about the FAA trying to get people that have severe, intellectual, people diagnosed with disabilities, and some of those are, I believe, the intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. Yeah, here it says right at the bottom here. So, so this is, this is not a joke. This is not fake news, that the New York Times tried to say that the New York Post does and stuff. It's being reported everywhere. But so I guess one of the things to understand is, what does it mean to have severe intellectual disability? I mean, aside from, getting to watch the White House and get a sense of what that means, here is the definition, apparently. So this comes from the National Library of Medicine. And so this is a sort of I believe it's NIH, I guess. Anyways, I believe this comes from the DSM-5 is where they're pulling this from. And the definition, let's see, I gotta find this thing again because I scrolled past it, unfortunately. Okay, here it is. Severe ID manifests as major delays in development, and individuals often have the ability to understand speech, but otherwise have limited communication skills. Despite being able to learn simple daily routines and to engage in simple self-care, individuals with severe ID need supervision in social settings and often need family care to live in a supervised setting, such as a group home. So this sounds like, somebody that might have trouble problem solving on a job. Somebody who might have trouble, trying to figure out the safest course for an airplane to take.
Yes, we employ, or we have assigned to our company somebody from the FAA, and his job is his or her, depending on who they are, is to authorize our operations, whatever operations that we propose that we want to do. For example, we want, back a few years back, we wanted iPads to be in the cockpit to take over the role of paper charts for our flight charts, our approach charts and our navigational charts. So that was a complicated, very sophisticated set of guidelines that we implemented under the guidance of this person from the FAA assigned to help us out with stuff like that. I mean, this is just nothing compared to some of the other stuff that this working together of the FAA with various companies, including manufacturers as well as operators like us and like my company. And so, I don't know what they're going to have them do other than take out the garbage and bring coffee to the people that can do this kind of work. But I mean,
and let me jump in real quick, Tim. Let me just jump in real quick, because the one last thing I want to introduce in the story, and it gets right to what you're talking about here, is what the mission is. And James, maybe you could bring that thing up real quick again here. The mission of the FAA is says right on their webpage here, the Federal Aviation Administration, our continuing mission is to provide the safest, most efficient aerospace system in the world. So how does hiring people with severe intellectual disabilities fit in with that mission? Right.
It doesn't.
I mean, this is exactly. I mean, this is part of the problem. Is that so much of this DEI stuff is a different mission than whatever the government is supposed to be doing. But anyways, go ahead, Tim. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in there before.
Maybe we ought to do this universal basic income and just get everybody, to people like this with severe handicaps, so that oh, wait a minute, they're going to want to give them basic income plus a job at the FAA. Never mind, bad idea.
I mean, this is the DEI going amok, okay? All right. But when you look at DEI, it really should be DIE, which is die, because this thing is the death of our society. I don't know how much people gonna have to die in our society before we realize the lunacy that is going on here. Which one of you guys want a surgeon working on you, your wife, your child, or your grandchild who came through some DEI program? You really want that? You want a pilot to be flying a plane, and he came through some DEI program, and he just barely passed the exams, if at all. And all of these things, they always do one thing of these things, they lower standards. They lower standards just to get people to satisfy some quota.
Well, so, on the other hand,
go ahead, Tim. It's okay.
Finish your thought.
So this problem, this DEI problem, is a virus that is affecting our society, infecting our society in a very, very bad way. We got to be very careful here, because there's only so far we could go with this damn nonsense before people start dying, if that hasn't happened already. The military, whose mission is to fight and win wars, you know what they're doing? They're into this DEI now. Oh my God, we got to make sure we have the right skin color to go out there and fight people. What the hell are you talking about? We just want somebody who could shoot straight. That's all we need. And these people just on this mission, their mission is to destroy our society, and that's what's going on.
Yeah. And when you brought up danger, let me just pull us back to the story real quick of the FAA, because there was an airline story that recently happened where a door blew off of it. Tim, was it a Boeing plane that it blew off of?
Yeah, it was a Boeing. It was an Alaska airline plane. It was a Boeing, yes.
Exactly. So, James, maybe you could bring up the visual real quick, because I just wanted to show everybody in the audience. So, so this door just blew off in, I guess, 20 minutes after the flight had taken off. And it's, accidents happen. So it's not like it's the first time an accident's ever happened. But they did say, I think Elon Musk noted that he was looking at some of the Boeing corporate material, and they had just changed from, I think it was 2021 or something, to 2022, where suddenly DEI started popping up in all of their corporate literature, where that was becoming part of their mission. And so, it does kind of make you wonder, when you start changing the standards, is that going to cause people who, are not maybe the most capable to be working on jobs that may actually put people's lives at risk? So anyways, go ahead, Tim.
Well, yeah, at this point, I think they still are investigating what went wrong, and I'll wait until the NTSB comes up with their final report before I really point any fingers at any people in particular. I always do. I never comment about accidents and things like that until the NTSB has done their work. And of all actually, I was telling Susan, my girlfriend, of all the federal agencies, the NTSB has been doing the best job that I've ever been experienced with, and they always seem to be doing top-notch work. So hopefully they won't get filtered out like everybody else. But I do want to point out that President Biden is male. He's white. He's got a lot of money. He's of advanced age. And so he checks a lot of boxes off. I think it's maybe a good example of why diversity needs to be implemented to get rid of people like Joe Biden. So I mean, maybe that's a good idea. I don't know. I'm trying to find something good about in all this.
Well, Tim, you forgot one of the boxes where Joe Biden is concerned. Is intellectual deficient.
Exactly. He checks that box.
Yeah.
He really checks that box. He really does. Okay.
All right. Maybe that's it. Maybe he got in because he's intellectually handicapped. I'm not sure.
Well, you could say that. I would not disagree. But in general, we really got to be careful about these things, because these programs, they at one time you could probably argue they had some good intentions next to them. You could argue that I tend not to make that argument, but I'm willing to give them a little bit of slack here that, yeah, sure, you want to bring more people into the mix and that kind of stuff. But now this thing have just swung the pendulum so far, where it's actual racism and sexism and all sorts of the other ism that's going on, all bad, that's going on in our society right now. This is bad and dangerous. And this is the thing that we have to be concerned about, is the danger that these people are going to pose to, whether it's patients in hospitals, whether it's pilots in planes, whether it's bus drivers driving buses along the freeway. These people pose this whole program poses a serious risk to us. in the long run. It may not show up in the short run, but it could show up in the long run. Now, Tim is right. This particular situation Jason just described about the Alaska airline door that blew off the plane, yeah, we have to wait on the investigation to find out what went wrong and all that kind of stuff. I'm all for that and that kind of stuff. But the question that we should be asking, was there some standard that was lower that caused someone not to do some job that was supposed to be done? It wasn't properly done because somebody was not properly qualified to work on that door. That is a question they should be asking. But I don't think anybody's going to ask it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to.
Well, I tell you, where most of these terrible ideas come from, I think, even though this isn't quite a related story, this next story takes us to a place where DEI and all of these terrible ideas seem to spring from, and it's the Bay Area of California. the great Bluetopian state of California, and it's a story about our current governor, who used to be the mayor of that city. So it's sort of the wellspring of where all these woke ideas come from. And James, maybe you could bring up the visual. So apparently Gavin Newsom in all his glory doesn't know how to follow Supreme Court instructions. So the Supreme Court had made a ruling that said that, hey, look, citizens of the United States have a right to carry granted by the Constitution. And so they decided they were going to try to circumvent or ignore that rule. And so one of the things they did was they brought up a Senate bill in California that essentially made all of these special zones called sensitive places. And that includes parks, playgrounds, zoos, libraries, museums, banks, hospitals, houses of worship, blah, blah, blah. It just goes on ad nauseum. And it sounds like the only thing that isn't included is maybe your home. So maybe you have a right to carry in your home, but nowhere else, according to Gavin Newsom. But that flies in the face of what the Supreme Court is saying. Tim, I know this is your wheelhouse. Did you want to jump in on this story and kind of fill us in on what's going on there?
Yeah, so so the SB2 was passed, and so that puts severe restrictions on the carry of concealed firearms, concealed carry of firearms in public places where you normally would want to have one, because it's not private. So you're going to be around people that you don't know who you're going to be around, like a public parking lot or gas station or a restaurant or a theater or something like that. So so SB2 actually made it a little bit easier to get a concealed carry permit because, under that Supreme Court ruling, you couldn't make it impossible to get a concealed weapon carry permit if you're gonna, So that part was addressed by SB2, but they did the end around and said, well, if we have to grant permits to carry concealed, let's just make it impossible to use the concealed carry permit. So they passed SB2. Then there was an injunction that was placed upon that from one of the lower judges that was based on constitutionality of it, which he did not think it was constitutional to restrict the carry of firearms everywhere except outside your home or place of business. Essentially, that's what it did. I mean, any place you would want to go. You're even going to church, stuff like that. So so he put an injunction on that, which stopped for while they seriously look at the constitutionality of SB2. And then the Ninth Circuit, a few days later, go, well, we'll show you. And they put a stay on the injunction. Okay, so that stops the injunction, if you can follow this, because it's tough to follow. Then on last Saturday, a three-panel court here in California decided that they're going to lift the stay and bring the injunction back. So now SB2 is neutered again because, so it's like tennis. So if you can follow the tennis ball, now the ball is in the court, probably of the Ninth Circuit, which has had 80% of their cases reversed by the Supreme Court.
Yes.
In the past years, because they're they're a bunch of loonies over there at the Ninth Circuit. So fortunately, though, there's some good judges in California that are looking at the constitutionality of this and saying, hey, this is nonsense. And, let's stop this SB2 and allow people to carry wherever they, are normally legally allowed to carry prior to SB2. And then we'll look into this, the constitutionality of it, and so on and so forth. And so for the way it is right now, people can, again, carry their concealed weapons in these so-called sensitive places. Yeah, they're sensitive because they got dangerous people in there, silly. Come on.
Well, there's no doubt that this SB2 is in direct violation of the Bruin decision, which was handed down, I believe, in 2022. I think it was. I don't remember exactly when it was handed down.
I think it was last year.
I'm sorry.
I think it was last year.
Yeah. Okay. So 2023 then.
Yeah.
But the point is, though, of course, Newsom and then is going to claim, no. We didn't ban concealed carry. But what they did was a de facto ban. That's what they did, right? You could still exercise your right to carry, but you could only carry in your home and a few selected places out in public. I mean, very few. The whole state is become a sensitive area, and you can't take your concealed weapon there. So these people, these constitutional scholars we have running the state, they think they're better than the Supreme Court. Is that what they have? So they don't have to live up to, they don't have to live by any ruling that the court makes. So it's all going to play out. Eventually it's going to end up at the Supreme Court, and hopefully it will be overturned, and we will get back our rights to keep and bear arms, which is a right in our Constitution.
Well, hopefully we'll find some sanity outside of California that can force a little into California in court, I guess. No, it's certainly not going to spring up here. But anyways, let's get to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, and that's going to take us to something sort of DEI related, I guess you might say. But it's also going to draw us into the whole presidency thing as well, because we're going to go to Georgia, where the prosecutor, the district attorney, Fannie Willis. Well, maybe James, you could bring up the visual so I can show the title here. So she had hired a special prosecutor to go after Trump. In this whole thing, where all these different places are trying to essentially rig the election by knocking Trump off the ballot. And some even think maybe they're trying to rig the election by putting all the attention on Trump to starve all the other Republicans. But either way, there seems to be some serious election tampering going on with this strategy. Yes. But they seem to be, going after Trump with the kitchen sink for everything. Well, in Georgia, the special prosecutor she hired, it turns out the DA is having an affair with him. So he's apparently a married guy, and she's been apparently going off on him with business trips that it sounds like he's been billing for during times that she's been off with him. So it's kind of a crazy scenario. And I guess she's even been subpoenaed to I guess now testify in the divorce case now that this special prosecutor of hers is involved in. But the crazy thing is, okay, if it was just an issue of, some corruption of a prosecutor, but again, she brings race into this, which is the whole thing. These people that seem to be on the left, they can't see anything but race. And so I want to bring up to you a video clip of her going to a church to essentially plead her case to the public of why they should ignore this whole scandal that she's having right now of essentially sleeping with this prosecutor that she hired to prosecute Donald Trump. So, James, can you play the video clip?
You cannot expect Black women to be perfect and save the world. The Lord is completing us. We are not perfect. We need your prayers. We need to be allowed to stumble. We need grace. With that kind of support, we will move mountains and do Jesus' will. Stumbling all the way.
So that was just part of like a 35-minute speech she made where she's explaining how she should be forgiven for stumbling right into her special prosecutor's bed.
Stumbled right into Nathan Wade's bed, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's kind of crazy because all this stuff is coming out where it severely looks like there's been a misuse of public funds here. And even here, there's one more visual I wanted to bring up, James. And that's that the Georgia DEA is accused of paying this special prosecutor, the one she's sleeping with, more than the expert prosecutor that has all the experience in the case. In fact, it sounds like she also bypassed a lot more qualified people to hire this guy that she happens to be sleeping with. And so, apparently he's not even, completely qualified. Apparently he hasn't passed all of the, what is it? I think I saw it in one of these.
He had no experience. He had no experience in prosecuting felony cases. And he had even less experience, which is zero experience in dealing particularly with RICO cases, which is the racketeering cases that they used to use for the mafia. Now they're trying to use it on Trump. Go ahead.
Yeah, he wasn't even approved by the board, I guess, whichever board it is that I guess is supposed to be approving him for this stuff. I don't know. Anyways, you guys have any thoughts on this? But it just kills me that, it's like we're trying to get to that quote of Martin Luther King. Let me bring that back here, where the goal is to see people and judge them not by the color of their skin, but every time we turn around, they keep bringing up skin. I don't know. About all this.
The founders had a goal of having limited government and a free nation too, and they, that's obviously fallen flat on its face, just as much as Martin Luther King's dream has too. So we're way far away from this and going further and further away from it. So I don't look for any serious changes in the future, unfortunately. But I'm cynic.
Well, I hope you're wrong, Tim. I really do, But in this particular case, it's a case of those three great things that we always see in society: grift, sex, and power, which you could put money in there too. Because here's Fannie Willis, this esteemed prosecutor. She goes into a house of God and lies, and it doesn't even bother her. First of all, she lied about how people are attacking her because of her race. Well, she did say black woman, so it must be race and because of her sex. That's the first thing. The next thing was an even bigger lie. She said she hired 3 special prosecutors and she was paying them, all of them, the same hourly rate. Well, that turns out to be a lie. I think it was the Atlanta Journal-Constitution checked into that. It turned out to be a complete lie. This guy, this Nathan Wade, who is married and have children and is now going through a divorce, he so far have earned $654,000 from the taxpayers of Georgia, and nobody is sure what he did for that. But we know he did earn something by having some wonderful time with Fannie. They earned some money by going to Washington to collude with the Biden administration.
Leon, it's called going beyond the call of duty.
There you go. I am sorry, I didn't get it right. My apologies, I didn't get it right. So yeah, he and Fannie was going beyond the call of duty, really and truly, and knocking boots at times to get Trump. But this is the madness of all of this. Okay, we have a prosecutor who have clearly, okay, it's alleged now, these are allegations, who have clearly misused public funds. And just because she's a black woman, we got to be careful. We cannot possibly question her integrity because she's been doing this for almost 30 years and she have just stumbled. I don't know what she meant by stumble. She didn't define that. She just, poor lady, she just stumbled and all of a sudden we are attacking her. She even said that she had 3 prosecutors and we only attacking 1. Okay? Referring to Nathan Wade, who is obviously black. Obviously is a charge of racism here. And this thing just goes on and on. The man is not qualified to do the job for which he was hired. Let's face it. He's not qualified. Okay?
Leon,
go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
well, she might have a point if she's also sleeping with the other 2 and they're not bothering those guys. We don't know. I mean, maybe there's more to it, and maybe they are picking on Nathan Wade. I don't know.
Maybe so. I'll have to check on that one. He might have a point here. I don't know.
Sounds like she's taking discovery a bit too far.
Yeah.
Well, that woman's engaged in real discovery. I have to say, you're right, Tim. That's true. That's a good one. Yeah. Really engaged in discovery. Wow. I wonder what you was discovering, boy. Yeah. I hope it was standing up and not lying down, but how would I know? Okay.
Well, the 2024 election sure have taken a turn through the Georgia DA's briefs anyway. But I guess that's about all the time we have. So thanks so much for joining us on this one. And we hope you'll go online, check out some of our other stuff. We've had a lot of interviews over the past year. We're hoping to get back to some of those soon. But you can check out a lot of the interesting people we've interviewed who are fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. And before the next show, after you check out some of that stuff, think about what you can do in your region or where you live locally to promote liberty, because in the end, we've all got to do our part, or, these, the ship isn't going to stay afloat much longer if we don't. So anyways, but thanks so much for joining us. Until the next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.